thank you for giving your time, your presentation, although you had some technical issues at your end. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Now we are having our next speaker, Professor Sweta Parasd ji. She is professor in the Department of Sociology, Banaras University.
So, Bhartendu sir, I cannot hear you, so may I leave?
Okay, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All the best.
Actually, madam, our previous speaker had some problem with some system problems. So he was unable to listen us. Sound was not going to his end. So welcome, ma'am, for.
Thank you. You are perfectly audible. Am I
Okay.
audible?
Yes, yes, yes. You are audible.
Okay, thank you.
So I welcome on behalf of the participants and HRDC. I welcome Professor Sweta Parasd ji for this last session of today. Madam is professor in the Department of Sociology in Varanasi University. She is a very popular speaker. She has presented. She has been given invited talks in many seminars, many conferences. She is having a good list of publications. So we are lucky to have her today for this session. And she will be speaking on narrative as a method of feminist inquiry. So, madam, now time is yours. The thing, madam, the participants are not having access to audio. So they will be putting their question in chat box or Q&A boxes. And later on, I can put these questions to you. You may take up if you want like that. So you may take up now.
Okay, thank you, Professor Bhartendu ji. And I thank Mizoram University, HRDC, and Professor Bhartendu Singh, Professor Manoj Verma for having me here in this lecture. Though I have been to Mizoram University, HRDC programs earlier also. And this is, I think, the second time which I'm delivering lecture here. And in fact, as you said, and you are mentioning that will I be able to interact with participants directly? No, it is through only the chat box.
Chat box, yes.
Okay, and they will not be visible also?
No, no. Audio, video is not there.
Okay, so they are only listening. Audio is not there. Okay, so
they are able to get our voice and video both.
Okay.
But sometime earlier we felt that by mistake some participant on their audio and that creates noise for others. Presentation disturbance is there. So just to avoid that experience, we are muted.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that happens sometimes, but I personally feel, not for not any suggestion, that if participants directly interact, that is more lively. In fact, that becomes more lively. Okay, now coming to the, as informed by Professor Bhartendu, that I'll be speaking on narrative as a method of feminist inquiry. So if we are talking about feminist inquiry, first, let us start with feminist inquiry and why are we talking about feminist inquiry and not general inquiry. We are not talking about inquiry which we are doing or research. What we are doing is that we are talking about feminist inquiry. We all know, we all are aware, and you all being a teacher, in fact, being teachers of different universities, you must be aware of the term feminist inquiry and other terms related to it also. So why we are talking here about feminist inquiry? Because initially what had happened that knowledge, whatever we had, was generated or created through mainstream perspective or dominant perspective. If you look at the history, you'll rarely find, I'm talking about history prior to maybe a second wave of feminism, because second wave of feminism was that period where stories were started about women, because histories have been mainly his stories, not her stories. So to know her stories during second wave of feminism, what had happened, that many feminists and many in fact the activists who were associated with this women's movement, especially second wave of feminism, which is also known as radical feminism, because it was radical in many of its approaches, in many of agendas were very radical of this second wave of feminism. So they also did one thing, and what they did was to know the contribution which women had made to history. So the contribution of women to the history, they tried to know, and when they started going through the papers, the books, the journals, or the written materials, they noticed that there was nothing written about women and their contribution in the society or in any other field. In fact, a study was conducted where nearly 700 journals were searched by the feminists for the kind of paper women are publishing. First, they did not notice any contribution of women in the books and other things. Secondly, they did not, in fact, secondly, they did research on the topic. Just a minute, give me a minute, because I'm receiving phone continuously. Let me put my mobile on silent mode, and that is distracting me. So what I was saying, that these two were somewhere the point of inflection, should we say, or can we say, yes, these two were the points of inflection from where this journey of feminist inquiry uh, started, or it contributed towards journey of feminist inquiry. First, histories were his stories, not her stories, and second, the research conducted by the feminists during second wave on more than 700 journals, where they did not notice much contribution by women, and especially in the area of theories, contribution of women were nil. Then they started analyzing different perspectives, dominant perspectives, and what they found, that most of the dominant perspective which existed at that point in time was somewhere male stream perspective, and that is why we are calling it dominant perspective. And this male stream or main dominant perspective were somewhere male stream perspective. That means the knowledge that they generated focused mainly on the experiences of men in the society, not women. That means somewhere the knowledge that was created was half knowledge, half truth, not the full truth of the society. So this was the kind of situation at that time. And if you look at the contribution of feminists during second wave of women's movement or globally, you'll notice that uh, they have significantly contributed to different disciplines and to the discipline of sociology also, to which I belong. They have contributed tremendously by way of new theories, by way of new kind of methods and methodologies. What they did, they basically, in the search for a holistic kind of knowledge, in the search for a knowledge that somewhere brings in the realities of the marginalized sections of society, or the knowledge set that they have, the marginalized sections of society, including women. women are also one of the marginalized sections of society. So basically what they did, the focus was to generate knowledge that somewhere highlights the experiences of women in society or portrays the reality of women in society. And till then, it was not being taken up by the dominant perspective uh, in society and by the methods and methodologies which they were using. So this brings us to the question of ontology, epistemology, and methodology. So what exactly ontology? Why did women or feminists had to question the dominant perspective? Why did they raise questions on this perspective, and why did they believe that the knowledge generated by this kind of perspective or using this kind of methodology is partial knowledge, not the whole knowledge? And somewhere there was a tendency to recognize only those kind of knowledge which were generated by the dominant perspective. And what dominant perspective did, they somewhere decided, this perspective somewhere decided what is acceptable as knowledge, what in fact what is true knowledge, what is serious knowledge, and what can be accepted as true knowledge. All this was dominated and dictated by the dominant perspective, and any knowledge that existed outside this dominant perspective was not considered to be serious kind of knowledge. It was somewhere regarded as a marginalized kind of knowledge. It was somewhere regarded to be subjugated knowledge, knowledge that is low in category. So the low kind of knowledge, the subjugated knowledge, the marginalized knowledge, all these were the terms that were being used. And the validity which the dominant perspective used to provide to knowledge was missing from this kind of knowledge, meaning dominant perspective did not provide validity to this kind of knowledge, which was subordinated kind of knowledge, which was somewhere knowledge that was not derived using mainstream or male stream perspective. So since validity was not given to any other kind of knowledge than the dominant kind of knowledge, and derived by a certain way of, in fact, using certain methodology and certain methods also, only those kind of knowledge was given validity by the dominant perspective. And this somewhere sidelined or marginalized the knowledge which was available with the masses of the society, the knowledge which was available with the marginalized sections of the society, the knowledge which was available with the indigenous people of society. So, as I was saying, let us talk about ontological, epistemological, and methodological assumptions. What feminist methodology does, or was feminist does, they challenge the dominant methodological assumptions. They challenge the ontological assumptions and epistemological assumptions of dominant perspective. Because what had happened, the ontology, what exactly is ontology? I'm sure you all know what is ontology, but let us once more refresh our memories what exactly is ontology. That, and when we talk about ontology, uh, ontology basically speaks about what exactly exists. That means what is the nature of reality. This is what ontology does in society. So initially the people who used dominant perspective, they believed that only a particular kind of knowledge exists in society. That means only one kind of knowledge exists in society, and that is context bound. can knowledge be multiple in nature? Can it be context free? This was not recognized by the dominant perspective in society. So, one reality, and that is, I'm in fact, maybe I was speaking about context free and context bound. So the dominant perspective only believes in one reality, that is context free, not context bound, because the moment contexts are recognized, the situational standpoint theory what talks about. So the moment we realize that there can be multiple contexts, there can be multiple histories, multiple cultural contexts, we talk about the existence of multiple uh, types of knowledge, which dominant perspective did not talk about. So going by the dominant perspective, the ontological assumption was that there is only one kind of knowledge, and this knowledge is context free, meaning it can be applied universally because it was context free. So if we talk about sociology, if we talk about history, if we talk about any other discipline, are these disciplines context free? That's the main question. Because if these disciplines are context free, then dominant perspectives and the knowledge created by that perspective will be valid knowledge. But if there are more than one type of knowledge, if the knowledge is tied to the context, that means there is more than one type of knowledge. And feminists challenge the ontological assumption of this dominant perspective, dominant methodology. And they said that there are multiple types of knowledge that are bound to different contexts. In fact, knowledge is context bound, knowledge is history bound, knowledge is culture bound. That means knowledge is somewhere bound to the context in which that knowledge is existing. And that means if we don't recognize this kind of knowledge, we are somewhere ignoring the possibility of existence of this kind of knowledge. Our disciplines, let us take example of sociology. Our disciplines may be global, but these disciplines are not universal. That means we all have different settings, we all have different contexts from where we can get knowledge that is available there. So this ontological assumption was in fact challenged by the feminist, and they established that knowledge is there can be, the reality can be more than of one type, and it can be context bound. So we need to recognize that what exists, the ontological question is what exists. And the challenge which feminists put forth to the ontological assumption of the dominant perspective was that what exists is not only one type of knowledge, but the multiple types of knowledge which exist in society. Now coming to the epistemological assumptions, which says who is the knower, how knowledge is in fact who exactly are the knowers, and what is to be known, and how do we get that kind of knowledge. In fact, known knower relationship, and how the knowledge is acquired. So if we look at the knowledge, in fact, at the epistemological positions of dominant perspective, so first question that they ask is who is the knower. Second question which they ask is what is to be known. Third question that they ask is how to acquire that knowledge. So these are the three epistemological questions that was challenged by the feminist, and they came up with different kind of epistemological assumption. And if you look at the first question, epistemological question that needs answer is, who is the knower? And what the dominant perspective did, they said that only knowledge derived from the experiences of male members of society, the half of the society, is the valid kind of knowledge, and they are the knowers. That means other than male and their perspective, nothing is no one else is the knower. That means you don't have to know about women, their experiences. You don't have to know about the indigenous population and their experiences. Basically, the dominant kind of knowledge that existed is the only valid kind of knowledge. Uh, uh, in fact, this was what the epistemological challenge which the feminists put forth in front of the dominant perspective, uh, the perspective that believed that the knower in society is only the male. And the second question that they raise is, what is to be known? That means who is the knower? First, male are the knower. What is to be known? The experiences of men are to be known, not anyone else. What they think is valid is the only are those experience which male members in society have, and their perspective can be universalized and applicable. In fact, it can be applied to other members of the society also, because this is the true form of knowledge. No other form of knowledge can be the true form of knowledge. Feminists challenge this epistemological question also, and they said that what is to be known, in fact, includes women's experiences also, and other marginalized sections of society, subaltern studies. They also challenge this dominant perspective, because somewhere, who is the knower, what is to be known, and how to acquire the knowledge, this kind of the epistemological assumptions which was there with the dominant perspective in society, was somewhere generating biased knowledge, partial kind of knowledge. So they challenged this assumption. And as we are talking only about feminist inquiry here, and narrative, I'll be coming there also, because let us move in a sequence so that we understand everything. So this epistemological questions, what is to be known, was also challenged. Third question which epistemology raises relates to how to acquire the knowledge. And we all know, what did the dominant perspective do about knowledge? They said that knowledge can be acquired, in fact, by using only scientific methods. In sociology, when we are in the BA first year, we take admission in BA first year. What are taught to us, what we teach even today to our students, we teach them sociology is a science because of this reason. And then we again come to the next part of it, and then we say that sociology is not a science because of this and this reason. So why this confusion whether sociology is a science or not a science? This again is somewhere guided by the dominant perspective, because science was dominant, because engineering was dominant. Even if you meet people of science background, when they are interacting with people of engineering and medical sciences, they will you'll notice in with their conversation that they are somewhere feeling inferior to those people. Then coming to social sciences, they feel that science is the perfect kind of discipline, and we should behave in a scientific manner. And the moment a social science starts behaving in scientific manner, the data source, the knowledge that it generates will be completely partial, and we cannot assess the true reality of society. And this is unfortunately, even today we are doing this. I keep speaking though against this. Why do we have to teach our children whether sociology is a science or not? Sociology is a social science. Why can't we confident with this stand? But let us leave that. That is a bigger question and a bigger debate. So third question was how to acquire the knowledge. And obviously, as we are dominated by the science and the dominant perspective, we believe that knowledge can be acquired only by using scientific methods and positivism, which says that the knowledge can be acquired using only scientific method, and any kind of personal thing, any kind of speculation, any kind of all these things which can be source of knowledge has to be discarded, because these are not source of true knowledge. Feminists challenge this epistemological assumptions as well, saying that how to acquire the knowledge can be different for different categories of people. And if we are talking about women, the way of acquiring knowledge can be different. Now coming to methodology, that is systematic way of getting knowledge based on our ontological and epistemological beliefs. So feminist, somewhere, in fact not somewhere, they definitely challenged the ontological and epistemological assumptions of the dominant perspective, and they came up with their because methodology, what happens, it is decided by the ontological and epistemological belief of the researcher. If you believe in only one kind of knowledge that is context free and universally can be applied universally, that means you are ignoring the presence of multiple kind of knowledge. And if you are choosing to believe only in existence of only one kind of knowledge, that means your epistemology will be decided by that. That means the question that we raise, the beliefs that we have, the ontological and epistemological, somewhere guides the kind of methodology that we are going to adopt for collecting the data. This brings us to the feminist methodology. And feminist methodology, which we have already spoken about, as my focus here is on this narrative as a method of feminist inquiry, will not go into detail of feminist methodology. So what I was saying, that uh, the methodology which feminists believe, based on their ontological and epistemological belief, to be true, in fact, for the collection of data, or that can justify collection of certain kind of data, was feminist methodology, because they believed in multiple knowledge type. They believed in knowers can be multiple type, known can be multiple type, and the way of acquiring knowledge can be different or other than the dominant perspective. So because of this belief, the feminists challenged all these, and they came up with their own methodology, which we know as feminist methodology, which has several characteristics which we are not going to discuss here, because we'll be focusing on only one particular method, that is narrating. Now, when they challenged all these assumptions, when they came up with a different kind of methodology, that is feminist methodology. Methods and methodology. Methods are part of methodology. Methods are techniques of data collection. The way we go about collecting data is basically decided by the methodology. And how we collect data, feminist methodology, in fact, lays down all these steps of collection of data, why feminist methodology is needed, what kind of research is a feminist research, what are the debates that we had in feminist methodology, and what are the recent points in those debates. All those are parts of feminist methodologies, which we are not discussing here. And let us now come to the methods. So what kind of method suits the feminist methodology? In fact, the initial debate in the feminist methodology was that use only qualitative methods. They believed that using qualitative method only can bring about the reality of society. Uh, in fact, can expose the reality of society to us and can bring in the complete kind of knowledge, the knowledge that belongs to the other half of the society also. I'm not saying that there are only men and women in society. There are multiple kind of categories, gender, LGBTQ. They can also come up with their own kind of knowledge. There are different categories, Dalits, they can come up with their own set of knowledge and other subaltern perspectives. So I'm not going into all those details. Let us talk about feminists only and what they are saying. They said that to acquire, this was the debate, early initial debate, in fact, in feminist methodology. So what kind of method can be used to get knowledge that is in fact whole knowledge, that is holistic in nature, that is somewhere uh, that exposes the reality of people in society. So, what feminists identified to be the true methods of acquiring data that can create complete kind of knowledge, they said that because somewhere it was reactionary also, because they had raised questions on dominant perspective. They had challenged the way of acquiring knowledge also, that only using scientific methods you cannot create proper kind of knowledge, you cannot create knowledge that is holistic in nature. So because of this challenge, somewhere they believed that for creation of true knowledge we have to completely reject the methods which the dominant perspectives used initially. That means we have to ignore completely the scientific way of generating data, scientific methods and techniques of generating data. So they completely denied that method. And this is the reason I'm saying that it was somewhere reactionary, because they completely rejected. And they came up with qualitative methods. They said that to gain knowledge about women in society, we have to use qualitative methods only, because qualitative methods somewhere provide us this opportunity to to look at the reality of women in society, to gain in-depth knowledge about their situation in society, not the kind of knowledge which scientific discipline methods used to generate, that is superficial. And they were right also, because what we do in scientific method, quantitative method, if we use, we just provide option, yes or no. uh, have you suffered domestic violence? Let us take one question. Have you ever suffered domestic violence? If we provide option yes or no, that is fine. We can say the answer can be yes, I have suffered, yes, haven't suffered. But what are the reasons why they went through all this? Which who or what kind of situation forced or motivated the perpetrator to go for domestic violence? If we want to know about these questions in detail, we have to use qualitative methods only, then only, because we cannot provide option. because answers may vary from person to person. Suppose if even if we are providing 4 to 5 options, then also realities cannot be captured by only few options. So qualitative methods are the best methods uh, as per the feminist for knowing the reality of women in society. That's what they believed, and they came up completely rejected the quantitative method. And as a result, we see there can be multiple types of qualitative method, but here our focus is only one method, that is narrative method, which we are talking here. Why we are talking about narrative method? Because narrative, what we see that dominant perspective, the scientific method or the quantitative method, they ignore or somewhere ridicule also, used to ridicule this narrative inquiry is a method of inquiry that is very very useful if we are studying issues related to women in society. And it was completely ignored, completely denied by the dominant perspective. So, narrative as a method of inquiry somewhere emerged during the earlier decades of 20th century, and especially in a work by, just let me look at the name of the work. What is the name of the work which used this narrative method of inquiry for the first time? And it was the name of the work is the Polish Peasant in Europe and America by Thomas and Nanicki. And here they used narrative as the method of sociological inquiry. It was a study of Poland. And after that, many people started using narrative as a method of inquiry. Now, what is narrative? If we look at narrative, narrative is nothing but storytelling. So a story, if someone is in fact narrating his or her own story, how can it form part of knowledge? This was the belief initially, but feminist, as we know, they challenged the ontological, epistemological assumptions and came up with different kind of methodology and believed in using different kind of methods. And that is why feminists believe in using this narrative as a method of inquiry. And somewhere the knowledge that we get using narrative is a construction of, in fact, a powerful source of knowledge in society that is packed with information. We cannot simply deny that narratives are storytelling and it is very light way of collecting data. No, the way we narrate, when we start narrating our story, somewhere we provide that kind of insight that is needed by the researcher, because researcher can go beyond what you're saying, what you're narrating, to your belief system, to your experiences, to your expectations also. So somewhere by doing this, researcher is doing assigning meaning also. Whether it is good or bad, that is different question. But because we talk about neutrality, but I personally believe, and all most of the qualitative research methodology users believe that uh, this type of providing meaning to the situation, though it can be controlled, but we all are subjects, we all are human beings. Despite all this, we can take steps to eliminate all those issues, but somewhere we do assign meaning uh, to the stories of the research, in fact respondents. We do assign meaning In fact, somewhere our own perspective, our own experiences become part of the experiences of the respondents in society also. And this can be pointed out or said to be one of the negative aspects of narrative, but there are many positive aspects, and people are frequently using narrative as a method of inquiry. So somewhere narrative as a method of inquiry play very important role in society. In fact, it seeks to understand the experiences of the individuals in society. When we are using narrative as method of research, generally we focus on individuals, not on groups, because when we are using narrative, that means we are talking to the person, to the individual, and trying to collect data, use in fact through their story we construct the knowledge, the researcher construct the knowledge. So in fact, by understanding the experiences of few members in society or one individual in society, the researcher somewhere constructs the knowledge. And this is the reason that review of literature doesn't play much role when we are talking about narrative. Not that review of literature is completely discarded. If it definitely provides the context we are looking for, but we mostly as researcher rely, if we are using narrative as a method, on the stories that is being narrated by the participants. And on the basis of those stories, we look for different points which we want to gain. And after looking for those points, coding is done. Some themes are identified, some categories are identified, and on the basis of the identified theme and the identified categories, data is in fact assigned to these categories or these themes, and uh, results are analyzed if we are using narrative as a research methodology. Now, to as I said that there exists a kind of uh, gap when we uh, are listening to the stories of some people in society. Somewhere we I have already spoken that assign meaning to those stories also. So the story that is being narrated, the experiences that is being shared may get distorted by the inclusion of the perspective of the researcher. So what is to be done to avoid this kind of situation? Researcher, after analyzing the data, after codification and identifying the theme and categories and assigning those data to category wise and theme wise, and then analyzing the data, again sits with the participants and discusses the entire scenario to understand what he's conveying is exactly the meaning that the researcher wants to convey. Here the ethical considerations also become very, very important. So this way the researcher somewhere tries to collect data and tries to in fact provide meaning to the data, tries to understand the belief system of the people in society, and tries to know the experience of the participants of the narrative, in fact the respondents of the experiences of the respondents in society. So somewhere the narratives allows the researcher to present in fact experiences holistically, in fact in all its complexities and in all its richness or maybe it is simple also, or not that rich. So what I want to say is that the researcher narrates the exact situation and try in an attempt to narrate the exact situation. The researcher somewhere again, for filling that gap, discusses the entire collaborates with the participant, discusses the entire situation, discusses the finding to know if it is exactly the same that the participants want to say. So somewhere narrative is a powerful source of knowledge in society. We cannot just say that narrative is storytelling and ignore it as a method. I personally have used narrative, in fact, very recently as a method of inquiry. And I know a few of my colleagues who have used narrative to arrive at conclusion. In fact, narrative uh, can be very helpful if the issue which you want to study is something that is very sensitive, and you cannot just discuss it very openly. In that kind of situation, narrative plays important role. Let us take my example only. Recently, in fact, I sent a paper for a journal from Springer, uh, uh, and the paper was in fact based on femicide in Varanasi. Not exactly femicide, it is one form of femicide which I talked about in this paper, and it is female feticide in Varanasi. And what I found, in fact, if during my study, like we all know that the female infanticide is a topic, is an issue about which we cannot get proper kind of information. Why? Because it is legally banned in India, and act has been passed already, PNDT Act, Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Prevention of Misuse Act, and it was later amended to be PCPNDT Act, Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act. So being illegal, sorry, uh, getting data related to female feticide. Just give me 1 minute. So what I was saying that being such a sensitive issue, it was difficult for me to collect data about female feticide in Varanasi. Though 10 years back, Uh, in fact, in early 2000, I had collected data related to female feticide. And at that time, my approach was different. And I used, in fact, I collected data as a decoy customer, and that was easier for me to do that. But now everyone is very, very aware. So talking about female feticide, no one is going to reply. Then I kept searching, and I came across one NGO that is working in this area here. And I went to the persons, contacted the persons, and they spoke to me in detail. And they, in fact, generally this is the idea why I went to NGO, because I knew they are working in this area. That means they are in contact with women who have gone for female feticide, that sex determination, and then selective abortion of female fetuses. And it was easier to identify the respondents there. And obviously, Even after going through the NGO, many women did not come forward. And then what I had to do, I had to get contented with interviewing only 20 to 25 women. And for gaining this kind of knowledge, the method which was most appropriate was narrative, and that too personal narrative. So personal narrative is somewhere not that structured. You can just keep talking about, and the researcher can get what he or she wants to collect through the stories. And obviously I talked to all those persons and came up with certain stories. In fact, multiple stories, though multiple I cannot say, because the stories which I came across was similar in nature, more or less, only with few in fact variations in those stories. So because reasons were more or less similar for going for sex determination test. But yes, some facts which I came to know about female feticide in Varanasi was in fact surprising, because how women, in fact not women, the families are trying to decide or take their destiny in their own hands by pre-planning at the stage of preconception itself the sex of the child, that is a male child. Most of the IVF centers here in Varanasi, they are engaging in this practice only. If you look at the child born during last 1 year, in these IVF centers, you'll notice that hardly any female child is born in these IVF centers. Obviously, it is not natural. Naturally, there is a tendency for female child to born. In fact, number of female child is more if we go by nature's rule. But if we tamper the rules of the nature, obviously this kind of situation can be observed. So I used narrative to arrive at the stories of those women and to understand their situation, what compulsions were there with them, why being a woman, being a mother, they decided to kill their own child. All these questions, the reasons, the compulsions, the uh, many aspects, in fact, related to female feticide were, in fact, disclosed to me during this narrative interviews. So narratives are very important and useful tool of data collection if we are collecting data uh, with few respondents, with a group of respondents. If we are going for collection of data on a large scale, then definitely we cannot use narrative as a method, because it is very time taking method. You are listening to the stories of the participant, then you are analyzing the story, in fact assigning theme, and then again going back to the researcher for in fact confirming the analysis which you have done, the meaning which you have assigned. This way you are trying to control or be as impartial as possible. So we can in fact try to be impartial using any kind of method. But generally in this kind of methodology, feminist methodology, when we are using qualitative research methods, it generally becomes difficult. So what kind of methods are used when we are using narrative inquiry as a tool of data collection? Basically, narrative uses field text, interviews, diaries, in fact, journals also, autobiographies, and field notes. All these are photographs also, letters also, uh, any kind of personal information that you get can be used for data collection when we are using narrative as a technique of data collection, family photographs in journals, letters. In fact, to collect information, anything can be used when we are using narrative as a method of inquiry when feminist research. Now coming to the, in fact, what are the limitations, or not exactly limitations, let us discuss narrative. So as I was saying, that it is not suitable for all kinds of inquiry. If it is not suitable for all kinds of inquiry, that means what are the kinds of inquiry for which it is suitable? The kind of inquiry where number of respondents is very less, uh, there we can use narratives. The kind of inquiry where we have to gain in-depth knowledge about few participants or one participant, or very few in number. If the number of participants are less, we can use narrative as a method of inquiry. So it is suitable for study on a lesser number of participants, and if we are going for a study of larger number of participants, then narrative cannot be used. um, so let me in fact inform you about, because I was talking about the debates in feminist methodology, how they completely rejected the quantitative approaches. But there is a shift in this debate, and again from quantitative to qualitative to again quantitative. This is the recent shift, can we say, because it is not that recent, nearly 20 to 25 years back, uh, 20 years back nearly. There has the focus of feminist methodology has again shifted. And why this shift? Because I was talking about less number of participants and large number of participants. So I thought let us just discuss briefly this the shift that I was talking about. So the feminist methodology has again shifted its focus from quantitative to qualitative to quantitative again. So do I mean that we are now focusing only on quantitative? No. What feminists in fact realized when they started studying participants using qualitative methodology only, qualitative methods only, they realized the limitations of qualitative method, that you cannot, if you are looking for general kind of information, general kind of data. Suppose you want to, the government wants to formulate law related to domestic violence. That means we have to know the extent of domestic violence that is prevalent in that particular country. In India, let us take example. So if the government plans to enact some kind of an act, come up with some law to govern this or to regulate this kind of practice. What will the government do? It will collect data on a large scale about the nature of domestic violence, about its prevalence. And here, qualitative methods cannot work. The data, then when we are planning to get numbers only, to know the nature only, in that case, we have to use quantitative data also. So now in feminist methodology, we are somewhere focusing on mixed method approach, qualitative also and quantitative also. Where it is necessary, use qualitative data. Where it is not, use in fact where you want general kind of information, use quantitative data. Where you want in-depth kind of knowledge, use qualitative kind of data. So this debate has again shifted its focus. Now as I was saying that all these this narrative as a method, in fact, is empowering in fact, it is somewhere inclusive also, because and it is in fact uh, as a method of inquiry, narrative can be inclusive because it is including various perspectives, various kinds of knowledge in society. It can be empowering for the participants also, and for the researcher also, and for the general society also, in fact for the knowledge also. Because if you have correct kind of knowledge, that is empowering in itself. It is collaborative also, because you are taking knowledge of the marginalized sections of society into consideration. So you are providing voices to the marginalized sections. You are providing that opportunity to the marginalized sections of society to create their own knowledge in society. And if you look at this narrative, not exactly narrative, the significance of in fact inclusion of different voices, different kinds of knowledge in society that exist. In fact, it has been identified by the United Nations also, and United Nations now recognizes that two in fact in fact it was 2010 when United Nations recognized that we have to provide in fact we have to focus on the knowledge of the indigenous people also in society. It was in relation to the environment and climate change discourse, but the knowledge that indigenous people in society have has been identified by the United Nations also as significant source of knowledge where one should focus. And so narrative also somewhere enables us to focus on that particular area in society, on that particular uh, type of knowledge in society, that somewhere completes the knowledge and the removes the biases uh, in fact that was there in dominant kind of knowledge in society. With these words, I would like to stop. It's already 4:10, so I would like to invite few questions, so that or any number of questions if you want, so that we can understand what exactly is narrative in fact in little more detail. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, ma'am, for your presentation. So far, we have not received any question.
Okay.
So, dear participants, just have some questions.
Maybe they all are tired.
Fourth session may
I
not
can,
be. Sometimes
I,
they ask more question in later.
I can understand.
This
And being teachers, we are not used to uh, go through so many lectures in a day.
in a day, yes. So, all thank yous only coming, madam, not questions.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so no question, participants, anyone? No, all thank yous only coming, ma'am. So,
Okay.
so on behalf of the participants, on behalf of HRDC, on behalf of the coordinator and myself, I would say thanks to you for sparing your time and giving an elaborate presentation on narratives. So thank you, ma'am, for joining us. And as you told, you are already given some lecture for our HRDC. So in future also we'll continue like that. And with this, I would like to say thanks to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, dear participants, this was the end of fourth session today. Now, tomorrow we'll have another day. We'll be having 4 more sessions tomorrow. Tomorrow morning session, first session, will be on the topic a journey from ideation to incubation to startup. And the speaker is Professor Anurag Srivastava. He is in IIT Gwalior. Then second topic will be role of science to the society. And the speaker is Professor R.C. Tiwari. He is professor and a former dean of physical sciences in Mizoram University. Then third topic will be on internationalization of higher education and its impact on society. The speaker is Professor Tej Pratap Singh. He is from Department of Political Science, Banaras University. And the last session tomorrow will be a very productive one.